Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Juan Londoño and today we're going to discuss the difference between shooting something new versus shooting something newly. Now today's video is inspired by a quote from Ernst Haas. And the quote says, "I am not interested in shooting new things. I am interested to see things new." Let me make things clear, right, before we go on. I'm not talking about people or photographers that travel the world looking for new things. As a matter of fact, that's the opposite to what we're talking about here, right? So let's get into the details and let's see what we mean by this quote. And I should say, I don't really know what Ernst Haas meant by the quote. I think I do. I think we all do. But I'm going to tell you what I think the quote means. I could go around chasing new things, right? And many photographers do that. They look at the map and they say, where am I going to go next year? And they gather up their money, they save up, and they take a trip, right? And, you know, parks like Yosemite, for example, here in the United States, that park was around before it was a park. It was just a place. Before we gave it the name Yosemite, it was there, right? And I'm going to take a trip, hopefully, because I've never seen it personally. I'm going to take a trip there one day. But there's where the difference lies, right? Many photographers travel to place A, place B, place C, and they'll do that for the rest of their life. And what they do is capture what they're looking at. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Why? Because if that's what makes you happy, that's okay, right? But if you're trying to push your skill a little further, if you're trying to make your photography unique, if you're trying to make it a little different from everybody else in the sense that, you know, even unique photography, I'm distinguishing between that and a little different from everybody else because I sense a difference in my head, right? We can all make things unique. Yeah, I guess it's the same thing, right? If it's unique, then it's different from what everybody else is. So, but my point is, we can go around seeing new places, or we can go around seeing new places and then figuring out how to look at them a little different, right? Or even better, as Ernst Haas says, I can take something that I see every day, that I see all the time, and I can see it new, or see it differently. Let's dive into this a little further, and I'll tell you what I mean. Going back to traveling, right? Even I'm at the point in my life where I'd like to travel a little more. I've had photography gear my whole life, and I've never really had a chance to travel much, so I'd like to get to that, right? And I hope to. And many photographers think this way, right? And many have been traveling for a lot longer. They were more organized with their money than I was, and they started traveling many years ago. But do we have to even wait to get to that point, or can we start enjoying photography where we are? We definitely can start sooner. Actually, we should start sooner, right? It's all a matter of just picking up our gear and going to nearby places and then doing what Ernst Haas is saying, right? Look at things newly. Look at things differently. Look at things new. Not look at new things, but look at things new. So I might take a trip to some place like here in North Georgia, a place called Dahlonega, which is a very pretty downtown. If you go to the downtown, it's pretty all over Dahlonega, right? The mountains are beautiful, the roads. But I can go to the downtown, and instead of walking around and seeing what everybody else is seeing, which I've done for so many years, and capturing that, maybe I can shoot a storefront from behind a car window. Maybe I can shoot like people hanging out in the back of a bar instead of the front of the bar with the name. You see where I'm going, right? So the places have always been there, but now we're starting to look at things differently. And this applies to all of us, right? I like to do street photography. I like going to New York City a lot. I grew up in New York City. For those of you that like going to different cities, next time you go there, right? Because we have places that we frequent. Like I'll look for places to go every year that are different, but I'm always going to go back to New York, maybe once or twice a year, because from where I am in Atlanta, Georgia, it's not expensive to get there. My brother lives in New York, so it's very convenient for me. He's nice enough to let me stay. He and and his wife and the girls are nice enough to let me stay with them. So I'm blessed that way, right? But I have to challenge myself to walk through that beautiful city and look at things a little differently. Come with me on this journey for a second. Let me take a break. Have you had your water today? Pause your video, go get something to drink, hopefully something healthy, and I'll see you back. So back to my point. Come on this journey with me for a second, okay? Say we start at the age of 15, 1-5, not 5-0. And we challenge ourselves to see things a little differently than everybody else, right? Whether we have a camera or not is not important. But since we're photographers, let's assume we have a camera. And wherever we go, we start challenging ourselves. 10 years later, by the age of 25, do you think that maybe we've developed a skill, right? We've rewired, and if you don't know about this, it's called neuroplasticity. It's rewiring your mind to think a little different because you're making new connections. You're forcing new connections to happen, right? Because you weren't thinking that way before, and by thinking that way, you force new connections, and then you grow those connections, right? And those circuits are used so often, those pathways open up. So for 10 years, we've been challenging ourselves. Now we're 25, we're walking around with a camera. It's probably now by this point an instinct that you and I are going to get to a place and we're going to look at each other and say, yeah, it's pretty, but let's see what else we can do, right? Maybe we're going to go shoot it from the bottom up. Maybe we're going to go from another building across the street and shoot it down, maybe with a drone, maybe from the inside out and show the stained glass windows, right? There's so much we can do, but we started training ourselves at the age of 15. So by the age of 25, this became habit. And wherever we go, we get totally different photographs than everybody else. And if we're street photographers, I know many friends of mine are, I challenge you to do the same thing, Whatever city you go into, don't just catch yourself drifting around and across the same streets doing the same thing. See if you can shoot it opposite. Whatever you're looking at, see if you can get inside of it and shoot it out. See if you can cross the fence that you're looking at. See if you can climb the tower that you're looking at, right? That's the way we have to think, because not only does it help our photography, those new pathways that we've made in our mind help us to think differently in other fields of our life. So if you're into engineering, if you're into architecture, if you're into painting, if you're into programming, whatever you're into, by forcing those new connections, it applies to all of those fields. So even in my 9-to-5 job, learning how to think differently with my camera teaches me how to think differently at my job. See where I'm going? I want to jump ahead of Ernst Haas for a second, with all due respect. And I want to go a step further. So he says, instead of shooting new things and just focusing on that, shoot things new, shoot things differently, right? Now I'm going to go a step ahead and say, what if we shoot new things new? That's even better, right? So, okay, it's okay to stay in our backyard, but heck, let's force ourselves to get out of our backyard. Let's take a little trip to another state or nearby, right, that we've never been to before. If you have the money, take a trip to another country. So that's shooting something new, and then shooting something differently or something newly. You get there and you start applying your skill of looking at things differently, and you shoot something new, newly, right? So I wrote this down because I say, wow, yeah. So we go from shooting new things to seeing things new to seeing new things new. Get it? If I confused you and you need to repeat this section, by all means do. I think I'm going to watch this again. By the way, if you watch YouTube a lot and you're on your keyboard, like on your computer, I'm on my computer a lot, and you're not doing it on your phone, and you want this shortcut, videos that come with chapters, like most of mine, you can go back chapters or you can go forward chapters by holding the control key down and hitting the right arrow if you want to go forward, and hitting the left arrow if you want to go back. So try that, it's really cool. But again, you need a video with chapters like mine. And I know many people do add chapters. My brother was the one that recommended this early on when I started making videos. He said, hey, it would be cool. You have like a lot of good ideas. It would be cool if you labeled them so that people can hop around and look for the topics they want, right? And I thought, I got to learn how to do that. So I finally, of course, learned how to do that. And most of the videos that I have, probably 90% of them have chapters. You know that if you've stuck around with this channel for a little while, that I try to associate photography with life, right? And that's one of the big purposes of this channel. I need to do more reviews. I get that, right? I actually have a whole bunch of them started that I have to finish. And I want to do more of that this year because people do like those, right? Especially new gear that's coming out. The problem there is that this is a new channel, and many of the channels that do that are way more advanced and they have money to work with, right? So even if they don't buy their own gear, they rent it. And for me to rent like a new lens every week or a new camera every week starts to add up. So maybe I'll do like a coffee thing where people donate $2 or $3, you know, for a cup of coffee. And really what I'll end up using that is to rent gear. Or maybe like a Patreon site or something where people can, you know, donate some money, like $2 a month, you know, commit to like $2 a month, and hopefully that doesn't break anybody's bank. But that's a thing for later. But I'm just letting you know because the main topic of this channel continues to be associating our improvements in photography, associating them to life and how we can improve our life, right? So back to the point I made, when you've rewired your brain to look at things differently, you start to open up your mind to look at things differently, not just at work. I talked about work, right? Whether you're a painter, engineer, whatever, architect, but it also helps in your relationships, in your friendships, in just everything that we do, right? Everything. When I say everything, I mean everything, even the way we deal with our pets, right? When you've started looking at things differently, and I'm not talking about getting behind my pet and looking at its butt instead of looking at its head. That's not what I mean. You can do that if you like. That makes you happy. But I'm talking about the way that I deal with my pet, right? The way I reprimand my pet, right? Your mind starts opening up and you start to just think about all the possibilities you have in front of you and how you can do things differently. I wrote this thing believing that I could memorize this and just spew it out and say it, but I can't. To no surprise, right? So, you know, I think this is very relevant, right? It says, at any age, keeping a flexible eye and flexible mind teaches our brain to develop new pathways that facilitate less rigidity and more cooperation and understanding. So I wrote that down thinking I would actually be able to say that. So I got it out anyway. Like everything else we talk about here, right? Once you start associating photography with life, the more we integrate those two, the more enjoyable life becomes for us. And I think, you know, once you're enjoying something, it starts to change your mood and your attitude. And then other people like being around us, right? And of course, we're all trying to get there, right? I'm not saying I'm there, but it's definitely something we all strive for. If you enjoyed this video, if you got something useful out of it, please like down below on your left, subscribe down below on your right. I have to think backwards here. And if you subscribe, you get notifications when a new video comes out, which should be about every week. I've slowed down a little because I have other projects going on. One of them coming soon, and I'll let you know in a few weeks or a couple of weeks. But anyway, I love you guys, as always. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your time. I love spending time with you here. I assume, you know, that I'm just here in front of all of you talking to you. That's how I get my videos and how I launch my videos and I talk, you know, to my camera. I don't pretend that I'm talking to a camera. I pretend I'm talking to all of you. So thank you for spending time with me. I really enjoy it. And I hope we see each other again next week. So until the next one, ciao for now.